Author is never obligated to purchase copies of book. If author does wish to purchase copies to be sent to a contiguous US, UK, Canada address, they may do so in batches of 20 plus books at the following discounted rate schedule, with this pricing valid for 2 years from today's date, the date of the contract's enactment, and renewable thereafter at mutual author and publisher agreement. So I'm going to stop at this point of this clause just to explain this a little bit. So first and foremost, as this began, you're never obligated to purchase copies, okay? We're not going to make you. Some publishers will say author is mandated to purchase X amount of copies, and that's a way that they're going to try to make money off of you, is by getting you to purchase copies of your book. We never obligate that. You can purchase 0 copies of your book, and that's fine by us. Do we recommend that you purchase copies? Absolutely. You should, because any copies that you sell yourself, you're going to make more money on than any copies that run through a retailer such as Amazon or a bookstore. Amazon and a bookstore are obviously going to take a large cut. That's the retailer's privilege. They're the ones who are stocking it. They're the ones who are selling it. They're the ones who are orchestrating it, finding the consumer for you. So they're going to take a big piece because of that. If you sell a copy yourself, you go on book tour, you're doing readings, you're selling it through an author website, whether one that you have on your own or one that Atmosphere builds for you, any of these other things, you're just going to be able to get a greater return per book. So that's a little bit there. But this chart, this pricing chart here, is valid for any contiguous US, UK, or Canada address and in batches of 20 plus books. So if you live anywhere in the lower 48 in the US or in the UK or in Canada, and you want to order 20 copies of your book, this chart here is what is going to tell you the pricing for your particular book. So obviously at the time of you building your contract, you don't necessarily know how many pages your book is going to have, right? But this gives you price certainty going forward. If your book is, brief, it's a poetry book, it's a novella, it's not super long, you pretty much know that you're going to be in that first listing there, right? If your book is longer, if you know you're going to want hardcover, this gives you cost certainty. That we found is really, really important for authors because of things like inflation, right? The cost of printing has been going up and up and up. You wouldn't want to turn around in a year and a half and realize that your poetry book, now you have to pay $18 a copy for. We wouldn't want that for you. So this ends up giving you cost certainty. You know exactly what it's going to cost. So this is a clause that we will go back to with you when you have that big book, publicity talk, when your book heads to the printer, when we know exactly, what the manufacturing costs of your book's going to be, what the retail price is going to be that we discussed with you, that you are going to, work that out with us. We're going to discuss all of that. At that point, you're going to already know prior to that, during interior design, exactly how many pages your book is going to have. And as sort of a general rule, we try to keep the page counts down, because obviously we want to keep these costs as low as possible for you. So we're not going to be putting your book in some micro format to drive up the page count. That does you no good. That does us no good. We want to make this as advantageous for you as possible. So the reason why it's 20 plus books is just because only at 20 plus books are we going to be able to get the economies of scale with the printer and with the post office to be able to get you this pricing. We're not going to be able to get you pricing that is this good if you try to order under 20 books. It just is going to be too expensive. So that's why it starts at 20. Also, regarding these particular prices, the prices that are listed here in this video, these prices do change over time because costs do go up over time. So I do request or advise that you go ahead and just double check your own contract that you have, just to make sure that you understand what that is in your contract, because it may be slightly different than what's listed here in this video, because these do get adjusted over time by slight amounts, but they do get adjusted. Also, a couple other points on this lengthy line item. As you see here, the last little bit listed for black and white paperback, 500 plus pages, hardcover 250 plus, color or non-contiguous US, that would be Hawaii or Alaska, or non-UK Canada addresses all receive bespoke pricing based on final manufacturing and shipping cost. So if you live in Hawaii, if you live in France, if you live in Guatemala, if you live in Japan, these are all things where we'll work the pricing out specifically for you. We're not able to give you the same like predictable upfront pricing just because we don't exactly know what we're getting ourselves into with that. Because obviously some locations cost more to ship to than others. And when the book starts getting extra long, it's a little bit less predictable what it is that we're working with. So there's a big difference between a black and white paperback that's 500 pages exactly. You know, that we'd probably be able to do for $12 a copy, right? Piece of cake. But if your book is 1,700 pages, we've never published something that long yet. But if it were, obviously we would need to come up with some bespoke pricing for you. So if you have further questions about this, just always feel free to ask. If you are somebody in a different location, we're always going to try to get you the lowest price possible. That's why it says bespoke pricing based on final manufacturing and shipping. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be more expensive than these other pricings listed here. It just means that we're going to have to actually look into it and figure it out with you. So that's something that I just wanted to make extra clear. Also, this last little bit I want to mention is the pricing valid for 2 years from today's date and renewable thereafter at mutual author and publisher agreement. This is just to give you this guarantee for 2 whole years, despite what might happen with the global supply chain, despite what might happen with inflation, et cetera, you have this locked in for 2 years. After that, then we'll probably just discuss like, oh, are we just going to renew at the same pricing? That's fine. Or if we have a new sort of pricing schedule, we will show that to you. Oh, hey, in the last 2 years, the pricing just went up by $1 for each thing. So your book is going to be $1 more expensive to make orders. But as it says, renewable thereafter at mutual author and publisher agreement, we're not going to be able to just force upon you a new pricing structure without you agreeing to it. So that's something where we will just, after 2 years, you come back for a new book order. If it's at all possible for us to just stay on the same model, that's exactly what we're going to do. But if it is something where we need to, investigate, oh, hey, like there actually has been a major international crisis and, prices are different. The dollar is worth a different amount now. That's something that we'll need to work through with you. But in our experience, the vast majority of author copy orders are placed within those first 2 years. And after that, hopefully, you would already be thinking more about that next book. So that's something that we'll work through with you. But the great thing here is just price certainty for the next 2 years. And I think that that's really valuable and is much better than a variable rate.